Good afternoon, and welcome to Helping Seniors of Brevard. I'm John Harper, and let me introduce the host of Helping Seniors of Brevard and the executive director as well. We've got none other in the studio than Kerry Fink. Hi, Kerry.
Hey, John Harper. Thank you for the kind introduction, and welcome to the 12 o'clock Wednesday lunch hour right here on 90.3 FM WEJF, where we gather around the radio. Welcome, too, if you're tuning in online at WEJF.net. But we love to gather Wednesdays around the radio and talk about things that are important for seniors to understand. And by the way, if you're catching this as a podcast, we always take each radio broadcast and we make it available every place you get great podcasts. So anything from Apple iTunes to iHeartRadio to Spotify, you'll find Helping Seniors Radio there. In fact, we were looking at some statistics, and they were showing us, how different podcasts rank on those, and we're actually kind of like rising up on the senior podcast level. So we're excited to see that. And welcome. Thank you if you're listening to us like that. Our organization, we're a little nonprofit. Maybe I shouldn't say little. We're a effective nonprofit right here in the heart of the Space Coast of Florida, which is Brevard County, Florida, on the East Coast. We always tell people, if you're listening from around the world, we're where they launch the rockets. That's maybe like our claim to fame here locally. But we're a great, great community. We're right here on the Atlantic Ocean. And Joe Steckler, who founded this organization literally almost 15 years ago, he had a vision that we need to do more for seniors, because in our particular county, 1 in 4 is over the age of 65, and 1 in 2 is actually AARP 50 plus. So they call you a senior at age 50 if you like it or not. But literally half the county is a senior, if you want to use the AARP definition. And so there's a lot going on here in Florida. Florida is growing like crazy. So many people are moving into Florida. We are talking about the fact that we have more seniors for 2 different reasons. Somebody is turning 65 literally every 7 seconds across the United States. So more people are just entering seniordom. And then people are just flat living longer. So now it's not unusual to meet people who are in their 90s or even early hundreds. It's just there's more seniors. And so when Joe started helping seniors, he wanted to make sure there was a tool that would help each of us navigate. He always talked about something you needed called an aging plan. We kind of euphemistically call it getting your ducks in a row. But the whole point is to get you armed with information that is going to help you make correct decisions so that you can maximize your quality of life and your success with life in your golden years. They always tell, when they talk to kids, they always talk about having a good start. And what we want to do is talk about having a good finish with everything. So we call it longevity planning. And we have really very fortunate to have an expert in the house with us. He's been a friend of the Helping Seniors organization. He and his wife are expert real estate people, and I was really looking forward to this show because I have so many questions to ask him about the real estate market right now. We have in our own family, we have our youngest daughter and her husband. They just had their first baby, and they are looking to maybe move out of the renting market and perhaps get into an ownership market, but there's so many questions that exist right now. So without further ado, let me introduce a real friend of ours. His name is Mark Gallegos. He is an expert at real estate buying, selling, and investing. Welcome, Mark. How are you today?
Kerry, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here again and share this information. And you're absolutely correct. The real estate market is nuts. And it is difficult to describe in statistical terms. At least we're able to say that it is a balanced market.
Yeah. Now, when you say balanced, that means like that typically there's enough people on both sides of the equation. Is that?
We're looking at supply and demand.
Yeah.
And the amount of supply that is out there in the Florida real estate market is huge.
Yeah.
At the same time, the demand, the number of people trying to buy, wishing to buy, anticipating and preparing to buy is also huge.
Yeah.
It's interesting to, you may drive around now on the Space Coast, and the Space Coast is, because it is the Space Coast, because we are here, because we have 72 miles of waterfront
right.
in Brevard County, the flow of people to this area is tremendous.
Yeah.
And is going to continue. There's a net increase of over 1,200 people per day.
Wow.
To the state of Florida.
Wow.
And those are numbers that we can measure. This is putting pressures on both buyers and sellers, putting pressure on supply and demand. Many of those who are trying to sell right now may have purchased when interest rates were lower.
Right.
Which puts them in a predicament now that they can't sell in anticipation of buying something else because interest rates are higher.
Yes.
And they can't really let go of that lower interest rate to step into a potential mortgage with a higher interest rate. So they're sitting and not selling, preparing to sell, hoping to sell, watching interest rates. And buyers at the same time, whether they're in those situations or not, are anticipating and hoping to buy.
Yeah.
The developers, as you may see, and it's disappointing for me to see driving around Brevard County, are building apartment buildings.
Yes.
And those apartment buildings are 100, 200 units, and they're being filled up overnight.
Wow.
Because these are the potential buyers. These are the people of every demographic group that are looking to become owners of their own homes, getting into their first home or a second home or a retirement home or their forever home in one way or another. And this is creating more dynamics in the market. And as I was, in fact, getting some listings this week with sellers who were with other agents but couldn't sell over the last 6 months.
Yeah.
And as I'm describing to you, my wife and I are able to reach the markets in English and Spanish and in Mandarin and Cantonese. And this is half the globe in those languages.
Yes.
And they're coming to Florida. And they're coming to Florida from domestically and internationally. And there's a population wave coming out of California and from the Rocky Mountain states. They're moving this way. Of course, always from the Northeast, from the Boston, New York, Massachusetts areas. They're coming to Florida. All roads, I joke constantly, all roads lead to Florida.
Yeah.
So this massive migration to Florida is not going to stop. But we really don't want them in apartment buildings.
Right.
And they don't want to be in apartment buildings.
Right.
So they're looking online, they're looking everywhere to find a home.
Yeah.
And they're looking to find a home in Florida. And if they're smart, they're looking to find a home in the Space Coast.
Yeah.
Where we are in Brevard County.
I think everything you're saying is making so much sense, and I was thinking that it feels like everything is kind of dammed up, waiting to kind of like go hog wild, because I know if you're on the selling side, you're trying to figure out what's going on with home prices. Are they going to rise? Are they going to maybe decrease a little bit? It seems hard to understand. And then on the buyer side, nobody wants to make the mistake about jumping in the pool too early if maybe prices would come down or interest rates would come down. And I was mentioning to you, I saw a news report this morning, I guess, that the Fed is supposed to have a meeting even today where they're going to make their announcement if they're going to make any adjustment to the interest rates. And I guess that has everybody just kind of like chewing their fingernails, like, well, give us something to work with.
There's no question that everybody is searching for an opportunity to buy or to sell.
Yeah.
And in Florida, I would say that the pressure is greater to buy than to sell.
Yeah.
As so many people have come and found their forever homes in Florida.
Yeah.
However, family situations are changing.
Yeah.
As I'm telling you, I just got these other listings, and I have for instance, a 5-bedroom house that I've listed. And in talking to the seller, as that house has been sitting on the market for 6 months or longer,
wow,
he needs somebody who can be more aggressive in the market. And that's, as I described, my wife and I.
Yeah.
And in a national, international market, and in multiple languages. we've got to be aggressive in selling.
Yeah.
And be prepared in buying. And as you're describing, everybody's watching interest rates.
Yeah.
If interest rates drop, then we're going to see some great activity in the market. As you were describing, things are dammed up. The market is frozen. It's a balanced market in terms of supply and demand, but people are holding their breath.
Yeah.
Nobody's putting in an offer, and sellers, 1/3 of houses for sale in the last month in Brevard County dropped their prices.
Yeah.
Because they're under pressure and they need people to come in. As I talk to buyers, I'm advising that there's room to negotiate. We can go in and we're going to look at the condition of the house, the long-term use of the house, and then your own family situation. This 5-bedroom house that I was just describing, we're seeing a change in demographics and how people are living in their homes. And we're seeing multi-generational homes.
Right, because I was going to say, as pressure squeezes somebody's finances, it kind of takes us back almost to the old days. At least, what I remember growing up is that you would have the young family starting out might be living with mom and dad, and then even grandma and grandpa might be living with mom and dad. So there was 3 generations in one house.
And we're entering that multi-generational sharing the space idea again.
Yeah.
Because if you get into a large home and you want this to be your forever home,
right?
You may have your grandparents and your parents and now your kids in the home. And you have a lot, and the lots are smaller.
Right.
And the builders are building on every available lot in anticipation of the market opening up and buyers coming in. They got ahead of the market in building so many of these spec homes. And as my wife and I are here in Palm Bay, and we saw some of these come up in our neighborhood, and the developers had to rent them out. So renters are going in, and they're somewhat vagabond. They're there some of the time and not all of the time.
Right.
And they're not going to make any improvements. They may not be keeping the yard and cutting the grass.
Right.
Doing those forever home maintenance aspects of, you get your home and say, well, now what am I going to do? Now I have to keep it up, and I have to maintain the plumbing and the electrical and the roof and the windows and be prepared for a hurricane. So that there's so much that goes into home ownership. A younger generation coming in, buying their first home, is going to learn all of those things. If they're sharing a home with parents, especially in Florida, then they have that additional resource of the knowledge that the parents have prepared the home. They have the hurricane shutters.
Yes.
They have impact windows.
Yes.
And they've prepared the yard and the garage door and those kind of things we're in Florida for the hurricane that's sooner or later it's going to hit.
Yeah, everything you're talking about is fascinating because I was thinking about the description. We really live in a very diverse community when you think about it, because you have so many different types of people coming into Florida. You have traditionally, we've been known as a retirement state. People love our weather and love the tax situations and things like that the state has to offer. So typically when their working years are done, maybe they made their money up north or out west, and then they come to Florida to bask on the beach and enjoy their golden years. So there's that whole dynamic. But now you're seeing so many younger families move in, particularly like if we think about up north with the up north of our county, I'm talking about, with our space center and all the activity, and you have these very high-tech professionals moving in to assist with the space program, and they're now getting established, and so there's a different dynamic there. And then we have people who have been in Florida for a long time. And I was thinking about what you were saying. So we see so many apartment complexes being built. It's like every time you turn around, here comes 3 or 4 new apartment buildings. And so obviously the developers are very, very invested in the idea that people are going to continue to come to Florida. And as you said, they're filling them up as quickly as they do. And I was thinking, as you were talking about that, some people's idea is, well, if I rent, then somebody else cuts the grass, somebody else does this, somebody does that, and I don't have to think about those things. But there is a point in time where the renting seems to be like a vicious cycle, right? Because you're just going to, every month you have to pay out, and every month or every time there's a renewal, I don't think your rent is going down. I think they're going to push it up, right?
That's right. Rents, because of the demand for rentals, rents are going up.
Right. And it seems like when you get into home ownership, you get, because as I was explaining to our kids, I said, when you own your home, every month you make that payment, several things are happening. First of all, what you owe is going down, so there's a day out on the horizon when you won't have that house payment anymore. But secondly, over time, it's never failed. The value of your property has gone up. So as opposed to when you pay your rent money, you've bought your place for the next month. When you pay your mortgage payment, you're buying something for your future.
Your future. And in buying the home and anticipating, especially in Florida, that the demand is pushing values up.
Yeah.
And values continue to go up. And the home that I just listed has, in 15 years, has doubled in value. This 5-bedroom home.
Wow.
It has doubled in value.
Wow.
And so now they're ready to sell, and they're trying to sell in a very difficult market.
Yeah.
So that when they bought, the interest rates were low. They now need to sell, and they have a 5-bedroom. There's not that many large families that are looking for 5-bedroom homes.
Right.
They need they're selling a 5-bedroom, but the value of that property and where it's sitting and the size of the lot have doubled the value from what they paid just 15 years ago.
Well, I think one of the arguments, I remember when the stock market was gyrating around a lot earlier this year, I was talking to a couple of financial professionals, and they always said, the key thing is don't panic, because over time you can just look, if you can zoom out that screen a little bit, even if it's bouncing around a little bit, the trend over time is it's just going to improve. And it's going to be whatever you're doing in the stock market is going to be worth more than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. The same thing is absolutely true of real estate. So even as it kind of maybe wobbles around a little bit in the short term, it's still the trend is I had a pastor friend once say they just don't make more land. So, I mean, property is always going to be on and up.
and that is an accurate macro view of what is going to happen to real estate in the state of Florida. At the same time, what is pushing is buyers are far more sophisticated and have far more information than they've ever had before.
Sure.
They're not getting in their car and going and visiting homes. If I have an open house, 1 or 2 people will show up. So when I have an open house, I have an open house online. Because 96% of buyers are searching online. And they're spending the time going and doing a virtual tour of the house. So as I list this house, I'm going to stage it and do a video tour of the house.
Yes.
Because I'm going to have an open house online by the weekend.
Wow.
And I've got to produce a video by the weekend. And so this is what realtors are having to experience, another advance in technology in order to get the real estate sold and get the real estate property information, qualities in front of potential buyers.
Yeah.
Even seniors, 90% of seniors are spending time online searching for properties. And they're searching for properties also to be able to value their own properties if they want to sell.
Sure.
So they can do a sophisticated comparative analysis online to see how does their property compare to other properties in a 1 mile radius, for instance.
Yeah.
And in Brevard County, in the northern part of the county, the southern part of the county, the central part of the county, the proximity to the Space Force bases.
Yeah.
And as you're describing, that employment situation, bringing in these high-tech employees at the space programs and at the high technology centers that are located in the Space Coast, you're talking about a very highly educated population who's going to do due diligence online.
Yes.
And they're going to know everything there is to know about whatever house they're interested in seeing, and they're going to see it online. They're going to do a virtual tour online, and then they're going to send all of their questions through email and text messages. And that's what my phone is going constantly, because they have another question. What about this? How old is this room? How old is the stove? How old is the refrigerator? Can they be replaced? What about the washer dryer? All of these little details is what I present and place in front of buyers so that they can make informed decisions. I assume that these buyers are sophisticated.
Yeah.
They can run the numbers. And as I was meeting with my seller yesterday, he's retired from the Army.
Yeah.
Coming out of the Army, this guy knows how to run numbers.
Yes.
And he's an engineer. So that when we started going through the numbers for his property and setting his property value and showing him the CMA, the comparative market analysis that we had already run, he was on target.
Good.
He knew the numbers, and he was able to watch us go through a potential closing on his property and what the closing was going to cost him. What are going to be his closing costs, assuming we can get this buyer in the next month or two and get this property sold. And even in getting a buyer in and getting an offer in and getting an offer accepted, then there's the process.
Yeah.
Then there's the process of selling.
Yep.
And confirming and going through an appraisal.
We're having a great conversation with Mark Gallegos, who is a real estate expert in whether it's buying, selling, or investing. Mark, we're going to go to a mid-show break here in just a minute and continue the conversation, so please don't go anywhere. But I wanted to ask you, if somebody has questions or want to get in touch with you or Jeannie and get some insight, whether they're buying, selling, or investing, how do they reach you?
Absolutely. The email address is valuemsg@gmail.
Okay.
And my phone number is 305-761-8500.
All right.
Jeannie's phone number is 305-321-1373.
Okay, this is good. Well, we're visiting with Mark Gallegos, a real estate expert. We're going to continue on the second half of Helping Seniors Radio. Stay with us.
And we thank you very much for that good information. You're listening to the Wednesday edition of Helping Seniors of Brevard. Kerry Fink is here. He's the he's the host of the show. Kerry, what was the event that you went to? Some type of concert or car museum, or what was that?
Yeah, well, so we were, what you're talking about yesterday, we were just over in Orlando. There's a movie coming out called Light of the World. It's a really cool, almost throwback kind of animation to kind of like the Disney years of animation, but it's literally telling the gospel message. So Tammy and I were invited to a pre-screener of it over in Orlando last night, but they had it at Deezerland of Orlando, which is that mall that this billionaire guy from Miami has he owns them all, and it's a great entertainment complex. But he's got all these amazing cars and things like that. And so Tammy and I were joking about, we have our own car raffle coming up. And so the whole thing that working with Mark at the American Muscle Car Museum, where he allows us to come in and do our raffle there, it was so fun to be able to, it's given us a whole appreciation for all these cars and things. It's just great.
Mark, you're from South Florida. Do you know who that guy is who owns this museum? Do you know him?
I don't know him personally, of course. I've heard of him and been to the Muscle Car Museum, and it's a fascinating attraction, and again, only in Florida.
Yeah. Well, this guy, I don't know much. I would love to be. In fact, I'd probably ask Mark. They must know each other. But apparently, he's like a huge real estate developer in South Florida. And this is one of his properties, and that's what he decided to do with it. And we only skirted the periphery of it. Okay, so because we started to walk around after the movie, and we're like, we got to come back, pay the admission, and just go through because. Apparently, he's got all these cars that played in movies and things like that. So, if you like that kind of stuff, that's there. His collection is amazing. It's interesting when you go into the American Muscle Car Museum, every single car is what I would call mint condition. A lot of the cars that we saw yesterday were more like, how if you ever look at a used car thing, they have excellent condition, good condition, fair condition, poor condition.
And then the back lot.
Yeah, and then they have the back lot. And he has cars of all condition. But to me, what's fascinating is when you walk into Mark's place, everything is spit shine polished. I think I heard from Ed Mark could walk and say, I want to take this car out on the road, and they would have it started and ready for him.
Every car in there works.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, that's
but
it's
a neat experience, and I can't wait to actually go back in there and see the whole museum. It looked just the part we saw, which is what you can see from the outside, is fantastic. And so a couple of our car show buddies that this Saturday we're going to be out at the Duncan Car Show right there beachside. That always gets 250, 300 cars out there. But several of the people that we know in the car show community, they were like, yeah, that's a neat museum to go tour.
Old cars are back in. A lot of people are really enjoying them. Real quick, and I'll get to the weather, then we'll get back to the show. But online, many times I'm now seeing show up on the internet, on Facebook, commercials for cars from the 50s and 60s, and that's kind of cool to watch.
That was something that was fascinating to me. We snapped a few pictures and put them out on our Facebook account. But there was our granddaughter, our oldest granddaughter, she's 17, and you wouldn't think about this, but the car that she loves the most in the world is the VW microbus, like the 60s. Remember how it was with the little windows and all that?
Yeah.
Mark has one that is perfect condition in his collection. And they're at the museum, so you see that when you get your ticket and come out. But he had several of them over in Orlando, the museum there. It's called the Orlando Auto Museum. He had several there, but you could actually buy them, and they actually had stickers for $52,000 you could buy one. And as it turns out, our granddaughter's father is a mechanic, and he had bought an older 60 style VW microbus and is in the process of restoring it for her because that's what she wants to be driving. And I was thinking wow, if he thinks that one's worth $52,000 by the time they get this one up and running, maybe it's a great investment. You never know.
It is pretty cool indeed. So thanks for sharing that with us and the pictures, and I'm going to check that out a little bit further.
Yeah, for sure.
You're listening to Helping Seniors of Brevard. Let's get back to more of the show with your host and the Executive Director of Helping Seniors of Brevard. Here's Kerry Fink. Kerry?
Hey, thank you, John Harper. I was thinking as we were talking during the mid-show break about the car museums and stuff, it's a great opportunity for me to, first of all, welcome you back to the second half of the Helping Seniors Wednesday lunchtime radio gathering here on 90.3 FM, WEJF, and also, in addition, 90.3 FM can be heard at WEJF.net online. A lot of people just find us online. And then, in addition, you're able to catch us as a podcast as well. And so we just appreciate you tuning in. But just before the mid-show break, we were talking about we were talking about cars and the car museum, and that my wife and I were at a car museum yesterday over in Orlando in connection with a movie event that we were at. It was really fascinating because I really didn't know a whole lot about it. But we have one of the most treasured gems, I think, right here on the Space Coast in Mark Pylock's American Muscle Car Museum. Mark is a great benefactor in our community. He has done so much. They have dog parks named after him that he helped establish because his role in business was he's been very instrumental in improving the flavor of pet foods over the years with a lot of technology. He was trained up as a farm assistant. I guess he really made some important and enormous changes in that. But his passion is collecting these amazing cars. And you walk in to the American Muscle Car Museum, and he's got now it's close to 500 cars, and even a couple of tanks, some Porsche tractors, outboard motors. He's got some of everything in there. But it's not open to the public. Like the museum in Orlando, you can just go buy a ticket and go tour anytime you like. With Mark's museum, it's basically his private garage. So the only time you can go to the museum is when he's opening it to support a charitable event. And so this is going to be our 9th annual car raffle. I'm going to reintroduce our guest here because I want him to be part of this conversation. Mark Gallegos, expert real estate guy who's been to the museum, so you know what I'm talking about, right, Mark?
Yes, fascinating.
It is a most amazing thing that we have this under our roof. And I got to tell you, Mark, I'll go out to an event where we're hawking is probably the best word for it, our car raffle tickets, and people who live here in Melbourne don't know it's here. I mean, all these years later, Mark Pylock has allowed us to do our grand drawing every year that he's been open. This is our 9th drawing coming up. The first year he wasn't open yet, so we had it literally someplace else. But every year he's been open, he's been kind enough to invite us back. But there are people who don't know it because it doesn't have signs. It's not open to the public. The only way you can get to this museum is when he helps a charity like ours. And so on Sunday afternoon, October 26th, so the last Sunday in October, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., he's opening up the museum so that we're going to be able to once again have our 9th annual Helping Seniors Car Raffle Grand Drawing. And as a small nonprofit, 501c3 technically is the definition, we use this car raffle. Joe established this years ago as our main fundraiser. It's literally about half of our budget every year. So as I always tell people, in a nonprofit, we can only go as far as people will help us to go. So the more you help us by buying raffle tickets and supporting the work of Helping Seniors, the more work we're able to do in the community. We have no reason to exist other than to do this work to help seniors. So I'm going to give you a couple of facts about the car raffle. And this is there's actually 7 cars that you can pick from if you win on October 26, 2025, and I sure hope you do. All the cars come from A.J. Hire's fine family of dealerships, Boniface Hire's dealerships throughout the county. And so it's one car, but you get to choose. So, for example, last year our winner chose a Chevrolet Colorado, a pickup truck, beautiful truck he got. We saw Jim Newman of Cocoa, and that's what his pick was. So he's tooling around in this beautiful black Chevrolet Colorado pickup truck. The year before, a lady named Diane Pelak, she said, I want the Mitsubishi Outlander. And so she's moving around town in that. But there's some great cars in here. Maybe you want something that's a little bit sporty. There's a Dodge Hornet in the mix. There is a Mazda Miata convertible. You always look cool tooling down A1A in a convertible. I mean, that's what the sunshine is all about. And then there's some great cars. For example, maybe you like off-roading. There's a Jeep Compass Sport you could pick from. So there's lots of great cars that you can choose from. And here's how this deal works. You buy a ticket. One ticket is $25. $5 is a $100 donation. And then you are in it to win it. And so when you do that, you're doing 3 things. You're supporting the work of the Helping Seniors charity. We're now moving into our 15th year of service, so you're helping us do that. Second, you're going to have a pick of a car. But third, while you do not have to be present to win, if you get your ticket, you are certainly invited out for that Sunday afternoon. And there's 3 different things going on that Sunday afternoon. Besides the grand drawing, number 1 is an opportunity to tour the American Muscle Car Museum and see everything that's going on inside there, all 500 cars that he's got. Then also, Bill Antonetz, who's our car show buddy, he's organizing a car show outside the museum. So there's going to be like several hundred cars outside the museum for you to tour as well. And then we're going to bring back something we began last year called the Brevard Adventure Village, which is going to be such a fun time. We have so many great adventures that are available to us right here in Brevard County. We talked about some of them. We have a wonderful space vibrance space industry here, but we have a world-class zoo, I think, here. There's so many good things that we have, and, of course, we have beaches and everything. This is a great place to live, which is going to move us right back into the conversation about real estate here in a moment. But I want to tell you how to get a car. First of all, Mark, you're looking. I handed Mark like a little. We call it a little flyer that talks about the cars. Do you have? If you were to win, what car do you like in this?
Well, as you know, we have a bit of a small family farm, and that Chevrolet Colorado 4-door
would be good.
Would be great for it. I need the truck. I have the dogs, and we go to Mark's dog park all of the time. We thank him for having that dog park out there because my wife and I love the dog park, and we love our dogs. And having them in the back of the truck, they would love riding around. Our dog Coda loves to jump in the back of the car and go for a ride.
So here we would be. Yeah, this is what's fun because it gives you a chance. You don't have to decide when you get your ticket. You can decide when we pull your ticket out of the hopper. Then you're going to have to tell us which one you want. But it's funny to listen to when I get a chance to talk to people and say, which car do you like? And there's such a diversity of cars that are out there. Some people, hedge toward the practical. They say, the Kia Sportage would be a good option because, I can load everything up and take it with me. And other people say, well, I'm at the point in my life that it's just me and my Roadster and I want the little Mazda Miata. So everybody gets to choose. That's what's fun about this whole thing. How do you get a ticket, you ask? Or maybe you just call us at 321-473-7770. That's our phone number, 321-473-7770. And Karen or one of our great volunteers will be happy to safely and securely get your tickets ordered and organized by phone. So you could do that. If you're online, you can simply go to HelpingSeniorsCarRaffle.com, and you can safely and securely get your tickets online there. HelpingSeniorsCarRaffle.com. We also have them, of course, at our Senior Resource Center, which is 1344 South Apollo Boulevard, second floor. Just come on up and see us during business hours. They'll have tickets there. And literally within the next week or so, you're going to be able to pick them up at the Boniface Hires car dealerships and many other pickup points throughout the county. The point is we need you to be in it to win it. This is our annual beg for money. But you get something out of it, right? You get to come to the museum, and you may go home in a brand new car. It's going to happen for somebody. It might as well be you. But the only way it's going to happen is if you get that ticket. One ticket, $25. 5 tickets for a $100 donation. Call us today, 321-473-7770. Or visit HelpingSeniorsCarRaffle.com, and you'll find all the information about the raffle and getting signed up in it. So, with that, Mark Gallegos, who's an expert at all things real estate, longtime friend of the Helping Seniors organization, you and your wife Jeannie have really helped us. You write an article for us each month in the Senior Scene magazine, and you're keeping us posted on everything that's going on with the real estate market because you really keep your ear to the ground and are familiar with it. And during the first half of the show, which, by the way, if you missed any of it, that's why I love the fact that we do these as podcasts, because you can go hunt down the podcast and then you can catch any part of this that you might have missed along the way. But during the first part of the show, we were talking about that's a very kind of confusing real estate market, at least for me, sitting on the outside, because if I put on a seller's hat, I don't know if where prices are moving. I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to sell too cheap. On the other hand, there's some scuttlebutt that maybe house prices could drop a little bit more before they turn around. So you don't know. And then if you're on the buyer side, you're trying to weigh all these questions about interest rates and what's going to happen if I don't want to buy and then see house prices go further and then find myself in a bad situation for that. And then on top of all of that, Mark, we get the fact that many of us are forced into making moves. You and I were talking about a case during the break where somebody has to make a move because of family circumstances. I'm thinking a lot of times for seniors, maybe they have to downsize. Maybe it's that something has changed. Somebody moved to a different state or something, or whatever, and now they just have to make a move. And so, as we were talking about, the less time you have, the more compressed and more difficult and less options you have. How do you navigate? Somebody comes to you on any of those levels. How do you sit down and meet them where they're at and help them navigate the complexities of these markets?
Thank you, Kerry. Exactly what we do is we meet them where they're at. And no two cases are the same. No two buyers are the same. No two sellers are the same. And there's going to be a myriad of pressures that any one of them may be facing.
Right.
The need to sell because of family circumstances, or the need to buy because they're leaving the military, for instance. There's so many former military veterans in our community who want to buy a home and want to stay here, and they're coming off the military bases and wanting to live in the sunshine.
Yes.
and there's, with 72 miles of waterfront in Brevard County, and me as a fisherman, I like this area.
Yeah,
the closer to the water. My son is coming to visit, and we've already booked some deep sea fishing and some intercoastal fishing, so that we're going to be out there catching fish and bringing it home. And my wife is the best in cooking the fish.
Call us when you do that. We're coming for dinner.
Okay,
Go ahead.
you are coming for dinner. We're coming for a fish roast, and the market right now is in this stressful situation where buyers are not sure what interest rates are going to be. Sellers are trying to establish their pricing, and we go through a process with sellers, for instance, where we meet you where you're at. We understand your circumstances. You may be going through, say, a loss in the family, or a divorce, or a recent marriage, or downsizing, or some reason that you need to sell, and you have a limited amount of time available.
Right.
So we go through our experience, which is more than 45 years of buying and selling real estate in Florida. Between Jeannie and I, it's more than 60 years.
Wow.
Because we've just been doing it for such a very long time.
Right.
And Florida has been growing so fast over these years as well. And we bring that knowledge and that experience and understanding of where our buyer may be in their circumstances, where the seller may be in their circumstances.
Right.
And we know how to negotiate, so that those circumstances are going to affect the negotiation. Sellers right now are under pressure because of interest rates, as are buyers because of interest rates. As I mentioned earlier, 1/3 of the homes for sale in Brevard in the last month have dropped their prices.
Right.
And buyers, as I've taken some buyers to see some properties recently, I'm saying, let's negotiate. Let's walk through the house. Let's look at what needs to be changed, what needs to be upgraded, what is unsatisfactory, and where your costs are going to be. So many of these buyers are buying for the first time. So many of the sellers are selling for the first time. That's where we come in.
Can I? This is a great point for me to bring a point up that we talk about so often in the helping seniors world. So one of our little things that we say over and over is we call it getting your ducks in a row. What we really are trying to convey is what Joe Steckler, our founder, always talked about as an aging plan. He said you need to have kind of like a roadmap for where you're going. We understand hurricane plan living in Florida means we don't want a storm, but we want to know how we intend to deal with it if it's coming at us ahead of time, not making decisions on the fly. And so in that, one of the things that we have really developed, Mark, is this concept that, first of all, we tell people don't try this on your own. So you can be very adept. Maybe you're an expert at searching things on the internet or things, but there are nuances that because you don't have your ear to the ground all the time or know everything that's moving in the market. And as we know, if you saw it on the internet, it must be true, right? There's so much misinformation out there. It's very difficult. People think, I'm just going to do a search on one of these places and tell me what my house is worth. But your house could be worth maybe less if it has some challenges that they're not aware of on their little computer program. Or it could be worth way more because they're not aware of some of the unique factors in your property. And so you can't look. Sometimes that could actually be a dangerous thing. It doesn't hurt to get some information, but if you rely on it without talking to somebody who's really boots on the ground, who has that expertise, you don't know. So a corollary, we've added this. We say, don't try this on your own. It's fine. Do as much, educate yourself as much as you can, but at the moment, get somebody who really could be there to negotiate for you. And I think one of the problems with real estate, the industry in general, is there's so many people who are kind of like playing at real estate. They just decided they had a few extra time because kids are now, in school. So I have half a day and I could maybe play with real estate. If I sell a house, it's great. If I don't, it doesn't really matter. So you have all these real estate agents who maybe passed the course, but don't really have the experience. And I do think experience matters, Mark.
Absolutely. And there's the adage that if you swing a dead cat, you're going to hit a real estate agent.
Yeah.
Because so many people will go out and get their real estate licensing that, as you described, they're going to sell a house, they're going to make a commission, and now they're going to be an active real estate agent.
Yeah.
And it's not so easy. There's so much that goes into the knowledge of real estate, of pricing, of market analysis, of anticipating the details, lender problems, appraisal problems, title issues, then the disclosures. As I was with our seller yesterday, we need to go through a very detailed disclosure documentation from the seller because you can't surprise your buyers if you have not disclosed some defect in the home. And you may not spend a whole lot of time discussing it or being focused on it. But we as the agent come in and we go through the disclosures. We explain our marketing. We explain negotiations, the favorable aspects. We're going to make those unique aspects of your property jump out at potential buyers so that buyers are hungry to see your property. Then you have to anticipate inspections because the buyer's going to anticipate going in and then qualifying for the mortgage, and then the mortgage having the appraisal so that it meets the price threshold, and then you're going to go through inspections. And there are diligent inspectors that are going to come out there, and they're going to look for every problem in the house, every faucet and every light outlet and every wire going through the roof and every aspect of how the roof and when the roof was built and the walls and the foundations and the flood. And you're going to go into this analysis with the inspections, and the appraisers are going to be picking it apart again in order for the appraisal to come in to be able to get that mortgage at that price. So we're here to make sure that all of these details coincide and are resolved, and we are doing all of the follow-up with the buyer, with the seller, with the lender, and handling all of these little details through a final closing.
And this is the point that we're back to when you were mentioning that you and Jeannie together have over 60 years of real estate experience. I doubt there's much that you see that you haven't had some experience with before. We're about out of time. I just want to make sure we're talking with Mark Gallegos. I want to make sure that they know how to reach you. Let's go through the email address and your phone numbers and make sure that folks can get a hold of you.
Great. For Mark Gallegos, valueremsg@gmail.com. For Jeannie, valuerejkg@gmail.com.
Okay.
And my phone number is 305-761-8500. And Jeannie is 305-321-1373.
Great. Well, thank you, Mark, for, first of all, sharing your expertise with us on Helping Seniors Radio, and also for just being you guys are such great friends of the organization. We appreciate you both, and thank you for joining us today, and we appreciate you for tuning in to Helping Seniors Radio this week. We'll see you next Wednesday, right back here, 90.3 FM, WEJF. Have a great week here to there.